Hi, everyone. This is Rico Figliolini. Thanks for joining us for Prime Lunchtime with the City Manager. We're going to be discussing three major things that just happened this past City Council meeting. One of them was voted on. Two of them were done what's called a first read and consideration. So they'll be coming up in the next council meeting. But we're going to be covering the Cornerstone Christian Academy application for a change of variance, um, a change of conditions for their property and expansion of the private school. Also, we're going to be discussing the townhome um, rezoning of from R100 to townhouse. That's happening at Jaybird Alley and Peachtree Corner Circle. That may happen. And also, we're going to discuss a rezoning application for 9.25 acres along Peachtree Parkway that's looking to become a multi-use development. Before we get to that, I just want to say thank you to Hargrave Fiber for being a great sponsor of not only this podcast, but the family of podcasts that we do in supporting Peachtree Corners Magazine. They're a company here in the Southeast that provides internet capabilities to small companies as well as enterprise businesses, along with tools, office tools that you can use to run your business better. Fast internet service, not like the cable guy. They're also a great supporter of Curiosity Lab in the city of Peachtree Corners. They're really local and they provide a lot of community support. So check them out. Hargrave Fiber is the company. HargraveFiber.com is where you can see them. So before we go any further, let me bring on, of course, my guest, Brian Johnson, City Manager. Uh, Brian, thanks for being with us. Um, the what what we're going to be discussing is a bunch of different things, right? Um, I'm acting as engineer right now, so bear with me a second.
No worries.
We do this all the time, but there we are. All right, cool. So I know that things have been crazy going on in the city and stuff, lots of new things going on. I won't even get into one of the things we discussed pre-show a little bit, which has been in the AJC, and that'll be a separate video that I'd like to discuss with some people and talking about what's going on. And the horrendous thing that deals with that I cannot believe a government official is allowed to do essentially. Um, so I'm just going to vent on that on a separate video from this. Um, but let's dig a little deep into what is going on in the city and some of the things, some really good things, and some things on that have taken advantage of the new multi-use ordinance and such. So the first thing on the agenda for today is just a quick discussion of Cornerstone Christian Academy, a private school here in City of Peachtree Corners, one of the best schools out there. They just got a best company for best place to work, I think, from the AJC that we just covered in our website, and which is not easy to get from what I understand. So it's great thing for them. So tell us a little bit, Brian, about what the application was for, and I'm going to slide some images on as we talk about it, or at least one.
Well, Cornerstone, Peachtree Corners as a community, as a municipality, we're very blessed. We have a number of great school options within the city.
Right.
Cornerstone being one of them. We got a great public school system offering. We got Wesleyan and we got Cornerstone. And so it's, I think sometimes as a community, we overlook the fact that if you live here, you got some great options.
Hmm.
And those options allow you to keep your world kind of as small as possible. So your commute times are shorter and, you can kind of, your quality of life increases if you can, especially, kids that are active, you can keep them close to home. And
Right.
so, it's nice. So Cornerstone is one of those great options. They have been doing well. Their enrollment has been, such that they've been able to, with that and some fundraising, look at creating a more permanent campus from what
Hmm.
they started. They started by acquiring a commercial office building and expanded, from that into multiple buildings that were assembled in parcels that were, contiguous. And so they've kind of got a mini campus.
In Technology Park. Right.
Right. And what they've done is when you've got this assemblage of buildings, that were originally constructed as just standalone commercial office.
Hmm.
They want their campus to actually start feeling like a real campus versus just an assemblage of commercial office buildings.
Sure.
And so they are taking one of the buildings and they're demoing the building and creating kind of a quad in the middle of
Hmm.
other ones. And they're also expanding that, or call it joining that, with adjacent property that is across the street from Peachtree Corners Baptist Church.
Now,
It's
for people that don't know, and I don't have a slide, unfortunately, I thought I did. That's the property, the parking lot across from the church that also has the athletic fields and a little pavilion area on the side.
And so Cornerstone has acquired it. They, I guess, just have use rights for a while from PCBC, and so they've
Hmm.
acquired it. And so now they're just kind of creating that campus, and that kind of locks in that part of it. They're going to continue to use it in the way that it was when they were just using the property and not owning it. So it'll still be used for recreational purposes. There'll be some parking there. There is a little bit of there's plans for a gymnasium on the property, and then a little, I guess you call it, clubhouse associated with the ball fields.
Right.
And so they have some expansion, plans for the property, but it'll still be used in the way that it has been so far. So, we're excited to have a school here that has done well enough, enrollments, such that they can put deeper roots into the community than they had before, and expand and make this educational offering that much more, enticing than it was before this plan came out.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I mean, I've seen Cornerstone start from a really small school. I think it was actually within Peachtree Corners Baptist originally, and then
Was it?
expanded out. Yeah, I think so. And then they got one office building, then they expanded to two, and I guess now it's three. Um, so it's exciting to see that.
It is.
And if I remember correctly from the plan, the proposed plan is that the ball fields will probably stay where they are, the ball
They
field,
will.
baseball field. The soccer field will probably be reoriented a little bit. And then that gymnasium is going to be, if you're facing the property, that gymnasium building is going to be on the left side of the property,
Yep.
taking up probably 2 or 3 rows of parking spaces along that side. So away from residential, obviously there's that, and close to the street side of Peachtree Corner Circle. So to have a great school, I don't think there was any opposition to that. I can't imagine to that request.
No, there wasn't, especially when they're using it for the same purpose. Everybody has accepted that
Yeah,
it's kind of a recreational use. It's associated, with the church and other
right.
areas too. It's a known commodity.
Yeah,
From the city's perspective, we were, very happy to see their plans, and we're glad that we were able to help facilitate them getting this and moving it forward.
yeah. So I'm excited about it, and we'll be covering that a little bit in the next issue, not this issue, but the June July issue of the magazine, Peachtree Corners. We're going to have a little profile about a little story about that, and maybe possibly some of the renderings of what's planned for that. Um, let's go on to the townhouse rezoning, or the rezoning of a property at the corner of Peachtree Corner Circle and 3755 Jaybird Alley, from a R100 large residential land plot, right, to townhomes. I'm going to slide this on. Tell us a little bit about this. And there was opposition to this. I got to say there were probably 239 in opposition to this. I don't know of how many people showed up at the city council meeting, but there was quite a bit of opposition, I think, sign-in and letters and such. So tell us a bit about this rezoning.
Well, I mean, this is typically what you get when you get a developer who comes in and is looking to maybe take property, assemble some parcels, or take something that already exists and, oftentimes redevelop it to something else. This one is one of those purposes, you're looking at, the easiest way is just to put, a townhome community on it. I will say at this point, that it was just the first read.
Mhm.
And so council, there was no discussion. The discussion and vote will be at the April council meeting. They did have the developer did have multiple appearances in front of the planning commission prior to getting to this point. It was tabled for some for some further interaction with local residents that had some concerns at least once.
Mhm.
And I know there have been some changes to it, but while this has been going on, I mean, I can attest to, because I've pretty much been receiving the same thing, is the local community there is very interested in this project,
Mhm.
and has been expressing things of concern, or at least things that council needs to take into consideration when this is being discussed. So there is a lot of interest from the community on this project, and mayor and council have received all of the communication. It's been organized in a way that, we know how much and what they're saying and what are the key points that are being brought up, and council is prepared to, discuss it from an educated perspective, both from what staff provides council and what the community provides. So I look forward to them debating this and making a up down vote on it.
Right. What actually abuts this development on the other side of this? Not the road side, but the other side.
Well, I mean, it's kind of a triangle piece. I mean, I guess there's a subdivision on the other side of Jaybird Alley from this, a single family detached residential community. There are at least, I think, two individual, single family homes that are in this triangle piece of property that are,
Okay.
I guess it's, what is it? Jaybird, Spalding, and Peachtree
Right.
Circle, I believe, is the three
Yeah.
roads that form the kind of parcel that they're looking at, or some of it. Now there's a, those are the
Yeah.
three.
So it butts up to residential. That's actually probably R100, I'd imagine.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So that would, on the face of it, to me, I know you may not be able to say anything on it yet, since Planning Commission, did the Planning Commission actually give a recommendation?
They did. They recommended denial.
Okay, which makes sense to me because taking a townhouse butting up to one R100 is just such a drastic change. Usually it'd be like, let's say R60 maybe, or moving, slightly higher and not going that far up in density next to an R100. That doesn't make sense.
You are right. That is one of the probably most common concerns raised by the residents, is the increase in density
Hmm.
that this would allow in the area where there's not really the same level of density. So,
Right.
and council has received that message loud and clear, and has not dismissed this lightly. They are prepared to, they're probably to a point on this that they could have voted Tuesday night. It was just the first read. So
Sure, sure. All right. The next item that we're going to talk about is the 9.25 acres along Peachtree Corners Parkway. There's a request for zoning, and this makes sense, right? Because we've been discussing in the last few meetings, podcasts about the multi-use ordinance and the changes that happen in the ordinance, and this is actually being affected by that ordinance. I mean, their application, from what I could tell, is taking full advantage of the credits that they could get for high density and all that stuff. They have a laundry list of things that they're doing that help them compile their density. And these are basically office buildings. This is basically Technology Park, of that side, right? It's you know
yeah, so this is on Peachtree Parkway. It is just north of the new signal at Engineering Drive in Peachtree Parkway,
right.
where
Hmm.
the racetrack and the liquor store are.
Right.
This is the immediate building to the north of that. It's a, I believe, 3-story building that sits off from the road, existing commercial office building.
Right.
And then it's that parcel, and then it's the parcel, or maybe parcels, but all of those single-story commercial condos, those old ones, or there
Right.
was like physical therapists and life insurance and some of
Accountants and stuff. Sure.
right. It's all of those and that existing one, the existing commercial office building. So that's the just under 10 acres or essentially 10 acres. And it's, what you see is, this is an example, as you're showing here,
Mm-hmm.
of this is the first application of the very first of our mixed use development ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just said, the developers have taken advantage of it, and we believe to the betterment of the entire project. And by that, I mean, given communication that's been happening prior to this officially being, submitted, and some changes since then, the project has actually got less units than the applicant originally requested.
Mm-hmm.
Mixed use development ordinance kind of, steered them down a road that ultimately resulted in less density. And then it does have certain incentives within that ordinance that we all win. They're donating land for green space. There's, adaptive reuse of existing office buildings. They are going to demo in that photo right there, those single story, and that's what they'll come.
Right.
So that's what it looks like now.
Right.
And if you go to the next one, that's what it will look like. The couple of things of note, and I don't know, do you have any of the other ones? So that's the single.
Yeah, let me pop one of the other ones up also.
Condos, how that will look. And then you have there's the existing 3-story office building set back off the road back there. And they're keeping that, and that's not the view. That's a different. Do you have any more? There's another view.
I think I do have this other view here. Hold on. There's this.
That's on the inside. That's the interior of the.
Yeah, I think that's all that was.
I may have had been privy to a view you didn't get, but anyway,
okay.
That office building is going to be kept. That one right there is going to be kept.
Now that's a 1982 building built, I guess. That's what I understand. Huh?
Okay, and they're going to be basically gutting it,
right,
and reusing it in a number of ways, including some kind of I guess similar to like WeWork space.
Okay.
Type of thing. Some of there'll be some amenities for the local residents in there, like clubhouse amenities type of thing. And so I think there's, and then I think they have templated a coffee shop to go in there.
So when they're talking retail, so this is another view. I think this is the some of the, I'm not sure if those are the townhouses. I think those are.
They are.
Right. There's going to be 26 planned townhouses, 295 multifamily apartments, essentially. And they say, so they're going to reuse the 3-story building, like you said, which was a 1982 building. So it's a fairly old building. So that makes sense. It's like, I guess, gutted out their building, not Recall, what was it, Brightree, and rebuilt theirs. Beautiful building, by the way, now.
And they're doing something similar to that. So the good thing here is there's a couple of things of note. One is we have an adaptive reuse of an empty building, a building that's been empty for 5 years.
Uh-huh.
And it's also going to remove those single-story office condos, which if you've been back there, they are in a very degraded condition. In fact, most of them were completely empty as well. The only ones, we never noticed it if you're driving by because the front unit still had some tenants in it. But man, when you went back, it was empty. People were breaking in. I mean, it needs.
Really?
So that's good. Second thing is all the trees along Peachtree Parkway are remaining. And at the end of the project, there will be more trees because of the replantings than they started with. And they also are reducing the impervious surface that's on the site. So when you get into all the existing parking lot and rooftop,
Mm-hmm.
and then they remove all that and construct the new, there will actually be less pavement when the project is done than there currently is. So those are some good aspects of this project that we're excited about.
With the project, you mentioned, obviously we're talking about, it says some retail. Is it just the coffee shop, or is it,
I'm not sure exactly. I'm not sure they even know at this point, because again, the way these things work, and there's still a few things, a few little details that are even being discussed that, that will probably tweak the final version that council is voting on. And so, again, planning commission serves a great, extremely important role here, and that is they are the best vetting tool that the city has of getting a project as close to possible as a project that council wants to approve. Sometimes it's impossible to get there, and council, again, denies the application.
Right.
But sometimes, I would maybe even say a majority of the time, planning commission is able to influence the developers at their stage in a way that then the developers continue to make modifications to their site as a way to enhance the product before council votes on it, which makes it easier for council to make a decision. Again, sometimes it's just a bridge too far and they can't come to that. But anyway, there's a little bit there. But on the retail side, you can't fill it. You can't know exactly because they don't have the zoning approved yet. So,
but don't they have to give you sort of a plan to say we're going to have like 10,000 square feet of retail?
Yeah, and they do. I just don't know that off the top of my head. They do. I mean, because mixed use development ordinance has to have 3 different uses in it.
Right.
And so they are their application does have square footage. I'm just saying that right now, before council, that number is probably changing as we speak right now because the developer is hearing some feedback and making modifications, but there will be a square footage dedicated to retail, and here it'll be depicted on where it'll be, some to commercial and some to residential. And if the rezoning is approved, then of course they go out and they try to lock up some leases. And those uses could be anything from coffee shop to, sit down restaurant to dry cleaner.
I mean, and it makes sense to me, obviously multi-use is going to be like that. It just doesn't make sense to me if there's only one little 2,500 square foot coffee shop and we're calling this development a multi-use development when, in fact, that's just like the minimal part of it, right?
It is. I mean, of course, all projects have to have a minimal. I mean, so sometimes, you don't get as much as you want. Now, I will say that the balancing act here on a mixed use development or just, I guess, in anything, but on this one in particular, is to try to achieve a balance that's achievable. By that, I mean, it would be great if there was a bunch of retail. Maybe you and I were like, man, I would love to have a little mini shopping area or whatever. That'd be great. Well, and I only bring that up just for purposes of illustrating this. If we wanted it, that'd be great. But if the developer can't fill it, nothing would be worse than for there to be a development that started off with too many square feet of retail than they can fill. And that has happened. And so there's also, sometimes you just have to be careful about making somebody try to fit a square peg into a round hole if the timing's not right, if the area is not right. And retail's the one that's the most difficult right now because retail nationally, I mean, internationally, is undergoing a unique, metamorphosis with the, Amazons of the world. So we don't know where it'll be. And so bricks and mortar retail is scary sometimes to developers if you have too much.
Well, and the good part about this though is that it's not like they have an anchor place that's 30,000 square feet of retail.
That's true.
So small shops, coffee shop, couple of small restaurants. I can see that, especially the whole idea is bringing in over 300 families essentially
Right.
into there, whereas the town center doesn't even have that yet. The apartments where the apartment and the Indigo Hotel were the um, original component of this, and who knows where that is right now because that's still not being talked about. Because that was almost 300 apartments or 260 apartments, I think, that would sit right over town center, and that's not there yet. So, which could probably help the retail, the restaurants and stuff like that.
Yep.
The whole idea of that energized environment of people just being, I'm going down to get something for breakfast, and just like you would in the city, in Atlanta, let's say, or Brookhaven or
Yep.
Buckhead even. Um, I did want to ask about this. The office building in the back, that's not being converted to this. This is a whole new building, though, that would be on there, right? This 5-story residential
That's
looks like.
a whole new building. That's
Okay.
correct.
Okay, and that would be set back, I guess. And the front part would be townhouses or any of the retail, it
That's
sounds like.
correct.
All right, cool. Um, Great. So we've covered that a little bit, and we've got a little bit more time. So I thought maybe we'd just quickly talk about you guys did a resolution to do a matching grant. Um, Thought that was a great idea. That had to deal with the EVA, low emissions. Do you want to talk a little bit give a couple of minutes on that?
Yeah. So just to step back real quick. So, the city, when it comes to economic development, has seen some really good success with Curiosity Lab being the magnet to attract companies here. We've seen it with Brightree and Ashray, and some others. We're seeing it with some other activity within our innovation center that maybe is only temporary, but it is still, activity. And so we have realized, though, that for us to continue to, innovate, for us to continue to keep market share of being, like the one of the only, if not only, living laboratory of our kind in really the world, we got to keep doing things to stay out in front. And what we're seeing is, we're starting to compete with cities that are way outside our weight class. And the only way we can compete with cities like, Jacksonville, Florida, just within their own general fund appropriated, I think it was like $25 million towards autonomous vehicle research and testing on a location of the city they're doing things. And Miami's thrown, tens of millions of dollars at things. And, we can't compete with that directly. So what we've decided to do is we decided to look a lot, be more aggressive at identifying and going after grants. Because that's the one way that if we are more aggressive at trying to find and go after them, that's one way for us to ultimately, punch outside our weight class. Above it is to have other people give us some money to be able to compete with that. So we have started that process, and we've gotten some consultants to help us identify some grants. And we just happen to have one that we identified. It's a low emission electric vehicle research and development grant that has a due date of April 12th. And so we weren't going to have another council meeting before then. And the reason council need to be involved is it's a federal grant, and the federal government generally wants to see a resolution of support from the local jurisdiction so that they don't, what has happened in the past, award a grant to a community that ultimately maybe doesn't support having it. Maybe mayor and council didn't want to go after it and staff did, and then you get it and there's not the community support. So they're looking for some measure of proof that the community would support something like this. to make it worth the Fed's, while, and to make sure that they're appropriating it to communities that this would be a big deal. And clearly, we think we have a competitive one with our, electric vehicle charging hub, the second largest in Georgia, largest in Metro Atlanta, the solar roadway, electric vehicle or the autonomous vehicle activity we have, and we are looking to get some more soon. All autonomous vehicles are electric vehicles. And then we, partnership with Georgia Power and testing what electric vehicles do to the power grid, and all that stuff feeds into the very reason that we had Curiosity Lab, and it feeds into economic development, which is about activity. And activity is what we want here, because activity of people, however temporary, they feed our local economy, because they're either eating in our restaurants and or staying in our hotels, renting office space, renting apartments, in some cases moving here permanently. And so this grant would help us over a 2-year period. We would use the grant to get 5 autonomous vehicles, which would be electric vehicles, here from 3 different companies. And those 3 companies would come out here and in coordination with Georgia Power do testing on, the burden to the power grid, interaction with each other, maybe testing of charging in the roadway. I mean, all sorts of things like that. But with all those things come support personnel. They come, technicians. They come with their own partners, other people who want to come out here. So our resolution of support would be, we will, we will support it monetarily or otherwise if we get awarded the grant. So that's why there was a resolution.
Cool. Exciting stuff that's happening in the city between development and BVA and Curiosity Lab. So, I mean, I think people should be excited that the city is moving the way it is. You guys are doing a great job. I think that's it, really. We could go on and on. I'm sure I don't want to keep you too long. Brian, I do appreciate you coming out, helping explain some of these important issues and things going on in the city. So thank you. Appreciate you being with us.
Thanks for
Everyone,
having me. Thanks for letting, creating this communication vehicle for us to get some information out.
sure. So we've been listening to Brian Johnson, City Manager of Peachtree Corners. Listen up for more podcasts coming out. We're going to be doing a podcast soon on the Wesleyan Artist Market, going from real artist market to virtual. That'll be coming up next week. Actually, depending on when you're listening to this, right? But thank you for joining us. And again, I want to thank Hargrave Fiber for being a sponsor of this podcast, as well as the family of podcasts and the magazine. Check out Peachtree Corners Magazine in another week or 2, and you will see lots of stuff.